Well, welcome to Facebook Live today with Awesome Marriage. I'm so excited to have our good friends Dan and Kay Ockey joining us today. Thank you guys for spending time and partnering with us and all that kind of good stuff. It's been great to see Centsei grow and to continue to have a great relationship with you guys. So thanks for that.
Thank you. We feel the same way.
We're super grateful to be partnered with Awesome Marriage.
Well, it's been fun. It is fun. And you've been very helpful with us in some areas too. So you have this free online budgeting course to help couples manage their money well. And we encourage people to take that and to kind of begin to take that first step to getting things in order. But let's talk about a few things that are going on in people's life financially right now. Inflation. I hear that all the time. It's a real issue for us, for so many of us. So is there a way to take action? Is it something we just got to suck it up and go through this? Or are there ways to take action to maybe make it through a little better than we think we would?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really what inflation does is kind of tighten the belt a little bit, right? Anything that maybe we could have done before, we feel it more, right? So really the main things that help are to increase income, implement systems, and just get your finances in order. As you start to do that, those big inflationary moments seem a lot smaller. So you're able to say, oh, is it actually that my grocery bill is doubling, or is there some other change that I can make here?
Yeah.
That's well said. I would also add, sometimes we see with our clients that people start to use inflation almost as an excuse to spend more. Like, oh, it's inflation, so I can.
Yeah.
Everything's so expensive. It is so expensive. But most things haven't risen by 50%. Most things are about 10 to 15% more expensive, and so that's very real. But it isn't real. It isn't enough to all of a sudden give us the excuse to say, well, I can just now no longer be responsible. But
yeah. So really use it as a wake-up call more than a license to do whatever we want to do.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I think some people have seen that. I've had people I've counseled, excuse me, in the last year that just say, yeah, I just kept looking at our grocery bill and we needed to do something different. We needed to make some changes. We hadn't budgeted before, but now we begin to take that step and just some things of, we got to do some things different, which you guys are experts at helping people do that.
Thank you.
So you talk about increasing money. Are there some really legitimate, really realistic ways that people can increase income?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of times we like to differentiate between short-term income and long-term income strategies. So really how you'll know which one to do comes down to your goals, where you're at in your system,
Sure.
To know if this is something that you need to do long-term or short-term. But just to give you a few ideas short-term, we actually have an ongoing list of things that our clients do. I can even read off a couple of
that's great
ideas.
While you're pulling that up, one of the main questions we ask that kind of sparks this list of ideas that our clients undertake is, if you had to make $1,000 next month, if you had to, what would you do? And that often, all of a sudden, you start to think about, okay, well, I would do X, Y, and Z. And those are the things that most people, they already know if you ask them that question what they should be doing, and then they can go undertake it. So here's some of the things our clients
that's awesome.
After taking them through this process.
Yeah, especially because that helps them to find maybe talents that they already had that they can monetize. So the first one is someone learned basic photography and now they make $1,500 extra a month. Cool. Somebody Airbnbs their home while on vacation and makes about $4,000 a year. Another person does SudShare, which is like a laundry service where you fold people's laundry and makes $1,500 a month. Another person cooks for people 1 to 2 orders a week and makes $500 a month. And these are all things that people are doing right now, like currently.
Oh, cool.
So it's nice to know that these aren't just things you find on a random blog, but they're tested, they're happening in this climate, in this day and age. And hopefully that helps people to get their wheels turning of what they could do.
That's so cool. Remind me of a couple that I work with this year, and they have someone, they get into really healthy things during COVID. And so, but they're also very busy. And now that they're out of COVID, they're out having, working outside the home again and everything. Found a lady that cooks for them. And this lady, she packages their meals, and apparently her business has grown where she's doing it for other people. So there's so many ways you can look at things, and especially when people are trying to find things maybe like that are convenient and
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. And it seems like there's never enough photographers.
I know.
I hear people, they say, we're trying to book family pictures and they can't do it for 6 months and my baby won't look the same. And, so just, yeah, maybe it's an interest someone has, like photography, and never did that and thought, I'll go into it. So that's cool. So there's a lot of creative things. So it might be something somebody's thinking they want to do, and then they figure out how to monetize it, or maybe it's a passion. Maybe it's eating healthy is a passion, so you cook for others. Those are great ideas.
And those are just all ideas our clients came up with. And really the question to ponder is, if you had to make $1,000, what would you do?
I love that. I love that. Because if we did, we'd figure something out. If it was a life and death deal or something like that, it would be, and they can't sell their kids. That doesn't count, right?
Kids
on a bad day, right? Exactly. So inflation is one thing. Any other financial struggles that you see couples are facing today, or do you see that are some the same, or are you seeing some unique things post-COVID come up for people?
There's a lot of unique situations that we're starting to see. I think some things that come to mind are just, there's changes in income. There's things couples were doing during COVID to make additional money, that they're having children, and maybe a spouse wants to stay home with the children. And that creates financial conversations that are difficult. We're starting to see that more and more and more as people have families and have children, or they start to have more children. Sure. So it's like, we got to make a decision here. Can both of us keep working? Do we want that? Do we value that? Where do we go is kind of the main question. Is people just don't know if they're at a good place. They don't know if they're doing the right things. They don't know if they're going in the right direction. And so the answer to all of those questions, whether you're having a significant life change or trying to know where to go, is to sit down and say, stop trying to go everywhere at once. If you're trying to have a serious life change, you may need to look and say, all right, how much debt do we have? How much savings do we have? What do we want to accomplish that would make us both feel comfortable for one of us to stay home and to not work anymore?
Yeah.
And then let's get to that point and then make the change, to build a plan and a roadmap to actually making that change a reality.
So it's kind of getting past some of the fears of it and just take step one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, like what Dan is saying, a lot of times inflation might be one of those things that push us, but a life change can be one of those things that feels like, well, we had money figured out. We were doing this. What happened? And then that life change helps you to see, okay, well, how do we open up even more financial conversations and dialogue, and how do we get both of us on the same page and all of that?
And go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, just, those life changes are far reaching. It may be children, it may be retirement, it may be a job change or a move. There's all sorts of things that impact our finances that we often don't consider when we don't attach to our finances, but our finances touch all of them.
Yeah.
And sorry, Dr. Kim, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, so in some of those situations, say a couple decides they both work, and they have a child, and maybe they thought that she would continue to work, and they decide after the pregnancy leave, they think, I think I really want to stay home. So maybe some sacrifices, maybe, but it's addressing it and coming up with a plan that is workable.
Super well said. The worst thing you can do is just log off, so to say, and then expect everything to be the same. It's not. And right. So mapping out what do we think is going to change, and doing that with a third party like a therapist or a counselor or a financial coach, can be super helpful. And just, what am I not thinking about as we consider or ponder this decision?
Yeah. I think some people, and I just think of 3 or 4 people come to mind that I've worked with over the last few years that were in some financial trouble. And when I'd kind of say, well, how much do you owe? They go, well, we got that stack of bills, but I just don't want to open them.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yes. Yes. People don't want to check the bank account, don't want to check and see, when we start tracking things with couples and clients, that people are almost afraid of seeing what the truth is. But we always tell people, you have no need to fear the truth, because when you operate from a position of reality, you now know what the real situation is, and you can respond in kind. If you're just making the problem bigger in your head, which is what most people are doing,
Right.
You never tackle it. And so the best thing people can do is understand what reality is and then operate from that point, and they'll actually get somewhere.
It's
Yeah,
a lot of what we do in marriage counseling, you
yes.
know? Same principles.
Yeah, we use the phrase data over drama, which
Yeah.
essentially is like, let's look at what the numbers actually are and make a plan instead of attaching all of this to it and oftentimes blowing it up way bigger than we think it is, just to actually know where we are and make a plan, focus on the data and not the drama. So,
Because I do think we get in our mind and we build it up worse than it is. Because one of these people I thought of when they finally did go through a thing, it wasn't as bad as they thought it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
it still wasn't great, but it was like, okay, we can figure out something with this.
yes.
Dr. Kim, what do you see on the marriage side? Because we're coaches, we don't deal with the deeper marriage issues in that sense. What do you see with couples and money? Some of the struggles that you see that maybe are a little bit deeper than maybe from a tactical approach.
Yeah, I think God, probably no. I was trying to think of a couple of people. I think what you said, the overspending seems to be a problem, and I think also when you get a couple that marries and one's a spender, one's a saver. And so those are things I have, that we work out because thank goodness they're not both spenders. I've had that a couple of times, and when they came in, there's a lot of debt. But I think it's helping people. I think what you're saying, communicate about it. Try what do we agree on? How do we do this? I think a lot of people that I've seen have been scared of budgets. I guess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, they'll agree that it's a good thing, but I think they're afraid that's going to handicap them, or I won't be able to go spend what I want to spend, and maybe not. But you're
Mhm.
going to have a lot better way of knowing what you can spend, and have better handle on it. So I think I would say I don't see a whole lot of people that have budgets of any kind.
Mhm.
It's kind of like check the bank account. Okay, I got that much in it, but then they forget they've got these 3 or 4 drafts coming out of that they forgot that are coming out. And then I think just people's spending ideas are different. Like somebody says, well, let's go look at a new car. And one of them wants to pull in the Kia dealership and the other wants to pull in the Mercedes, dealership. And so they've got to talk those things out. What are we going to
Mhm.
spend on a car? And how do we? So some of those things that I think people a lot of time think they're on the same page financially until some things come up. And they're
Yes.
like, okay, this is something we need to talk about. We are different here, and we didn't realize we're different here. And some of it can be as simple as, what do you like at the grocery store this week? I'm okay with hamburger all week. Well, I really like a steak once a week. Okay, how do we make that work for both of us? And
Yes.
just the communication of it, like you're saying, and have a plan. And just
Mhm.
because probably I would guess most of the couples that you work with at some point have argued about finances.
Mhm.
Yeah, or disagreed in some situation, maybe not a full on, yelling or
Right.
abusive argument in a sense, but yes, there's a disagreement typically about what to do and where to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's where people like you come in. Marriage counseling comes in to help people navigate that. So you don't just give up, or you just don't,
Mhm.
you don't take the steps to do something. People talk to you guys and do the online budget class, and then maybe take some next steps. In a year, they can have a total different year, or a totally
Yes.
financial year.
I was on a call earlier today with a client, and they were in $90,000 of debt, and in the last 9 months they've paid off $30,000 of debt. And people, there's different ranges and speeds to go at, but they were talking about how they had this unexpected tax bill come up, and it before that would have been devastating. It was $4,000, but they just, because they had a plan, they had savings, they had systems in place, they paid off a good amount of debt. It was like a, darn it, we'll resume paying off our debt next month, and
Yeah.
people can go so much further than they think if they do those things. If they take the time to set up a budget, if they take the time to set up systems of communication, if they address the problem head on and face reality, you can go so much further than you now even believe is possible.
So if somebody's watching this today, or looks at this later and really kind of gets peaked, and they say, well, we've been so frustrated with their finances for so long. How would you encourage them? What would you say to them of helping them get over that hump, really?
First, I would say we've been there,
Yeah.
which I know doesn't always sound so encouraging, but I think at least for us, when we were there, it felt like we were the only people in the world that were in that boat. And sometimes even just recognizing that like other people have done this and gotten
Yeah.
out of it is encouraging.
Absolutely.
Thousands of people have been in your same situation and gotten out of this. The second thing I would say, in addition to that empathetic response, which is classic Kay, is you need a system. You need a system. The core of money, personal finance, is spend less, earn more. That's how you get ahead. But it's not that simple. We all know that. You need the how. You need a system, a structure, a plan of how you're going to do that. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, and oftentimes when you do try to do it that simple, you're kind of sporadically doing everything, right? You're like, spend less. Okay, I'm gonna eat rice and beans. I'm gonna do all this. I'm gonna do all these things. And then you look and you're like, wait, it's still not working. I'm still in debt. I'm still in this. And that's even more discouraging because you feel like you are doing something.
Yeah.
Or on the opposite side, I'm gonna go out and get all these side jobs and I'm door dashing at night and I'm up late doing these other income strategies, whatever it is, and I'm still not getting anywhere. So it really is having that core system in place to then plug in all of those things that you're excited about and passionate about so that you know that it's actually going to move the needle and actually get you where you want to go.
And you can track and actually observe the progress from your activities.
Yeah, that's so good. And I agree. I mean, I think of, if they do that, do DoorDash, things like that, and then then they get frustrated again because it didn't do it. And then, they're back in the same boat, thought they had. So really taking time to develop a system is really just essential, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you just got to take that time to do that. And I think maybe people don't want to put in the time, but it's worth it.
It is work. all good things are work. It does take time. It does take work. But that's why you have a coach. That's why you have a guide who walks the path with you so that you don't have to do it all alone. And that makes it way more doable.
Right. And there's some built-in accountability, right?
100%.
Which is so important. It is in counseling. A lot of times I don't say just rocket science deals to people, but it's like there's accountability and it makes sense. And they've made the commitment to counseling, and so they're going to do it. Same with your finances. You've got somebody to go along with you in that, and that's so cool.
Dr. Kim, didn't mean to interrupt, but when would you recommend somebody work with a coach or a counselor or do both at the same time?
If finance is an issue, I definitely would say let's do it at the same time. Let's kind of work on, because if they've got the margin to do that. Now, if there's in a real crisis, we probably need to work through that crisis so we can get them to communicate on it and get them to a point where they agree to do that. But I think, I always feel that anybody, anytime is going to benefit from working on their finances. And I think it's what the most mentioned topic in the New Testament. I mean, so God knew we were going to have trouble. And so just saying it's okay. It's okay if you have financial problems and you're in a boat with a lot of people, a big boat, and just beginning to do something about it. So yes, I think so. I think it's certainly people that are struggling in that area, but I think just the principles like that you guys talk about are important for everybody. And I think sometimes in our culture, especially if someone that's making quite a bit of money and you've got a lot of margin there, but I think it's still important. I think there's still something to learn there, to be better stewards, to be able to give more or whatever. Just taking the time to do that.
I love that you said that. One thing that's very common that we're seeing with our clients, we've had about 1,400 people go through our program now, and a common pattern that's emerging is that a lot of Christians begin to tithe again, who had stopped because of financial stress. After working with a therapist and a coach, they begin to actually tithe again, and that also brings a level of spiritual satisfaction with God, because you are right with Him, and as far as the finances go, right? And so it often releases people to be more generous, to be more giving, and to tithe, which is we know there's blessings that come.
Absolutely, that's so well said, and I think so. And I've had people that that struggled, that wanted to and didn't, and then they worked back to giving the tithe. Maybe I had one lady, she was a single mom. She was so good. She started back with 1%, but her
Totally.
goal was to get to 10%. And when she finally got there, it was such a celebration for her to do that. Excuse me. So let's talk just a little bit about the online budgeting class. If someone decides to take that online, what do you cover? What will they get out of that?
Yeah, so lots of things, but we'll give you a few little sneak peeks and talk about. But we talk about 4 budgeting mistakes that we often see people making and that we ourselves were making. You'll hear a little bit about our story and about how we paid off our debt and where we're at now. But one of those mistakes that we talk about is frugal versus cheap. And the difference between that and how that affects your mindset, how that affects your budget when people are saying like, this is so restrictive, or I feel like if I budget, I'm never going to be able to do this, or I make plenty of money, I don't need to budget, or whatever the reasons are, that will really talk about that mindset shift and how to approach it from that view.
We'll review our entire financial system that we teach our clients, kind of give you an introduction and things that you can apply now, the software that we use, the tools that we use, just some ideas that you can begin to implement whether or not you go through our full program after you take the free class. We'll talk about how to approach financial goals. We'll give you examples of people who've been able to overcome really tough financial situations and how they did that. And so if you're thinking about making a change with finances, it's a great place to start. It's at no cost to you, and we recommend you watch it with your spouse together.
Yeah, and I think when we first talked, I can't remember when I first met you guys, just quite a few years ago now, I guess.
Yeah, like 4 years ago. I think.
Yeah, and so, but just thinking, to me, I thought there was such a natural partnership for marriage and finances because they're so intertwined for all of us in our marriage relationships. And I love what you guys do. The class is free, the online budgeting class. So you're not risking anything to do that. You're going to learn something, and it may encourage you to take another step.
Absolutely.
Down the line. So what's the best way for people to find you, to find the online budgeting class?
Great question. Yeah, so our website is www.centseifinancial.com. That's CENT. It's on my hat here. CENTSEI Financial.
I like that.
And or you can follow us on Instagram. LinkedIn is where we have a pretty significant presence. Been good to see you on there too, Dr. Kim.
Thank you. It's fun to be on there.
And but our website has all of our resources. Awesomemarriage.com also has the class on there as well.
Right. You can go to awesomemarriage.com. We'll put the other link below this, so you can do that. Guys, any last thoughts?
Just thanks for the work you do, Dr. Kim. We celebrated our sixth wedding anniversary on Friday, and we're a couple years behind you. We're having a hard time catching up to you. But we found that, and with the clients we've worked with, I know this is your testimony too, that when people get their finances figured out, it strengthens the relationship with your partner, and that is how we believe God wants us to be. We're supposed to be one, and that includes in our finances. And if you take the time to do that, it will pay dividends for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, what if you didn't fight about finances? And they go, you can really do that? Yeah, you can really do that. You don't have to fight about finances. So thank you, guys. It's great to see you.
Likewise. Always a pleasure to see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.